Right, so we've been saying over the last few videos that there is an alternative. There is a different way to live in relationship with money than the way that Solomon has been repenting of. So what is that alternative? How can we relate to money in a way that is characterized by wisdom? Well, we need to be careful, right? As we come into the end of Ecclesiastes 5, then when we read what Solomon actually said, it could be like somebody who doesn't know any better dismissing a diamond as a piece of cut glass, something that looks so ordinary and yet is so incredibly precious. We can lose something here of immense value simply because it looks so mundane and so ordinary. All right, because what Solomon is proposing as he comes into these closing verses of chapter 5, it's so unexpectedly routine, so commonplace, except of course it isn't. You know, listen to what Solomon says. He talks about somebody who can find satisfaction, somebody who has the ability to enjoy what we have, to be happy in our toil. He pictures someone who doesn't need to wrestle with questions of meaning and significance and purpose because they know their meaning, they know their significance, they know their purpose. And so they're able, in a sense, to move past that and to build on that, just simply enjoying life. And the danger is you think, man, is that it? That's the alternative? And it could sound like a bit of an anticlimax, except that when you stop and think about it, right, these few verses are so poignant precisely because the experience that they describe is so rare. Some people have never felt anything like this, or certainly they've not felt it in anything like a sustained way. And some people have never known anyone who has ever felt like this. More people than you imagine have given up thinking it would even be possible to simply find satisfaction, to enjoy what we have, to be happy in our toil, to not need to wrestle with these questions of meaning and purpose and significance. Can you imagine, though, how precious that would be? Think of those words: satisfaction, happiness, contentment, gladness of heart. It's a vision of life that is so powerful in its simplicity. These are the things that everyone pursues. But the open secret is actually so few find them in anything but the most fleeting glimpses. And even then, it turns out we can't hold on to them. Again, to use the language of Solomon, it's like grasping the wind. These things are so elusive. In fact, Solomon says, in a life that is lived under the sun, it's an impossibility. This is something that we can only experience when we lift our eyes beyond the horizons of this age and find ourselves in relationship with God. And a lot of people find that really offensive. It strikes at the foundation of all our claims to independence. That we're able to fashion our own meaning, that we're able to forge our own significance. No, Solomon says, look, all our attempts to do that are futile. Solomon's found that out the hard way. Many of us are haunted by it as well. Solomon says, actually, guys, this is all much simpler than we thought it was. Now, we don't have to search for meaning of life. We don't have to find our purpose. We don't need to pursue happiness. No, all we need to do is receive it as a gift from God. Not as a reward. Sometimes you get this idea that it's like karma. And if you're good enough, God will make you rich. No, that's not what Solomon's driving at all. He's like, it's just a gift. Right? Our ability to enjoy life, to be satisfied, to find happiness and contentment, to know gladness of heart. It is a gift that is just rooted in God's grace to us in Jesus. All right? When we find our joy in Him, He gives us joy in all that He gives us. That's the key. When we find our joy in Him, He gives us joy in all that he gives us, whether that's a lot or whether it's little. Remember the Apostle Paul's famous words in Philippians 4. I have learned, interesting word, right? He's learned to do this. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether I'm well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. And we find it summed up beautifully in Paul's teaching Timothy. He said, look, again, remember that section. We've gone back to it a few times. 1 Timothy chapter 6, where Paul said, look, you're going to deal with this, Timothy, in the life of the church. This is going to be an issue. And he says, Timothy, this is what you're to do. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, not to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. It's such a great picture of God, isn't it? A sort of generous benefactor who wants us to enjoy the things that he has given us. And Solomon's saying, look, to refuse to be in a position to receive that gift, that itself is a grievous evil, an absolute tragedy for any human being. And Solomon tells us, and again, remember, this is profoundly autobiographical, but Solomon is telling us of the tragedy of those who have wealth, who have possessions, who have the kudos and the honor that wealth and possessions give us in this world, and they have no ability to enjoy them. That little trio, wealth, possessions, honor. See, that's interesting because back in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 12, those are exactly the things that God promised to give Solomon. Wealth, possessions, honor. Those are the things that characterize Solomon throughout his life. You know, remember, he told us earlier, he lacked nothing that his heart desired. But because he sought to find his meaning and purpose and significance in those things, God didn't grant him the ability to enjoy them. Can you imagine the despair to not be able to enjoy all that you have desired? See, that's the evil of life lived under the sun. Life lived within the confines of this fallen world. Life lived without reference to Christ. Now, life outside of Christ, you know, it's supposed to feel empty. It's supposed to feel meaningless. It's supposed to feel insignificance. Because it's only when we know we are thirsty that we will long for water and appreciate it. It's only when we know that life out here is meaningless that we will find meaning in Jesus.